Okay. In this circumstance, they have a several development projects have implemented in Cao Bang, and one of them is a commercial smallholder support program, CSSP, funded by IFAD. In fact, IFAD has support for Cao Bang since 2008 in the development for business for the rural poor project. This project can be so I mean the project I'm talking about now can be considered as the second phase of IFAD project in Cao Bang. The project focus on 35 communes. So as I mentioned, we have 190 communes in Cao Bang, but this project focuses on only 35 communes in 4 districts with over objective is to contribute sustainable poverty reduction with 4 specific objectives. Let's list holistic, participatory, climate adapt, and market-oriented province socio-economic development and sectoral development planning, development a common interest group linked to the greater future of agriculture, climate adaptation, and climate change alleviations, increase public and private investment in sustainable, profitable community products and value adding and project management. That's for specific objective. So in this story, I will focus only on one of them. Is talking about developing the common interest group linked with the greener future of agriculture, climate adaptation, and climate change alleviations. Next slide, please. Wow. Next slide, please, Juan. Hello. Okay, thank you. So in this study, I will talk only about CIG, Common Interest Group. So let me go back to give some information about CIG before ABCD approach introduced in Cao Bang. As I mentioned, CIG introduced in Cao Bang in 2008 in IFAD first phase project. And they already formed about 500 group, but all the group was inactive right after the project ends. So basically, the CIG, I would say, is a one approach of development have developed in Cao Bang province. And they believe that by doing this, by grouping people together, grouping households together, it can create additional value. And it could be helpful for the cultural development. However, in the first phase, 500 group have formed and they already get a support somehow, but it still doesn't work well. Almost of them was inactive right after the project end. So, however, at the beginning of this phase, the project was intended to form a CIG group again in the form of a production organization for a kind of product. Is mobilizing the group member to produce the same type of products. So they still believe that this kind of approach with CIG can help for the poverty reduction. However, the way they think that they intend to do is still provide support as the first phase they did, like such as fertilizer, technical training, and probably like seed money. However, the challenge for the CIG in first phase still remain. It could be the leader project think that there are a lot of challenge for develop that kind of CIG in the previous way. So scaling up model in the remote area is not easy because they believe that CIG group is the way that can group all the poor more the poor people in one group and using like advantage from it's not a group of people can do better than one. So they think that by grouping people together can help them to reduce to help them in agriculture production, as well help them to access to the market and compete with the other business in the same areas. But however, it's still very difficult for them to implement in the real. And another thing is a coupling is that because of traditional production is the CIG the project intend to group them and also group produce the same kind of product, one kind of product only. So it means that each group focus only one product. But in fact, in the rural area, especially in Cao Bang, most of them are the poor, most of them are ethnic minority, and the diversity in the livelihood is, is the fact, is the way they do it every single day. And another difficult is how to help them to deal with the changings in the market. If we use like market economy or market base for the business, such difficulties they face. So next slide, please. Next slide, please, Juan. So so ABCD was introduced in the project when the Vietnamese ABCD core team in Vietnam met the project leader and tried to introduce them with ABCD. And right away, the leader of the project recognized that ABCD is a right approach, can help them to improve the implementation of the project. And we bring ABCD with different level. First, we introduce with the project coordinator, and we asked, we got a support from Coady Institutes and Vietnam ABCD core team, come with all our expert we have, and expert from Coady. We came to the Cao Bang province and introduced with the leader of province and the leader project steering committee, and we have a couple of ABCD training with project staff and stakeholder. Next slide, please. Okay, so right after the leader got ABCD training and sharing about ABCD, they think that in terms of developing CIG, they should redefine the CIG. So instead of consider CIG as a group that produce only one product for all, they think that now it should be diversity livelihood model, and based on bonding relationship and friendship with different level of cooperation, that they divide to like for some group probably their level of development probably is not strong enough to connect with the market. But first of all, they need to focus on food securities. Somehow like they should be connect to each other to only support for the production. And for higher level, probably we need to promote for the market access and then support with the credit or loans. So by redefining CIG, it more like based on ABCD, because not now the CIG is not formed by a project anymore. I mean, it doesn't mean that just group of some people together, but in terms of like the household or group members should be have somehow a friendship relation, a bonding relation that make groups stronger. And then it's not about like group them and then push them to produce something, but it depends on the level of their development to have the suitable activity to fit with the project and to fit with the group, then bring benefit to all. And we also believe that group saving is one core of CIC in Vietnam. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So project have implemented several activities with ABCD adaptation. They asked Vietnam ABC core team come to help them to training, to provide ABCD training and coaching with the CIG. It's not all a group, but they select three typical CIG group and provide training and coaching, and forming pioneering group with a different level of developing. And as I mentioned before, food security, market based with small scale model, and mobilizing the value chain, depend on the level of each group development, and encourage group saving and the credit activities, promote collaboration between groups, and promote market access, and they believe that bringing human resource is a ultimate growth. So 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 basically ABCD after they was introduced ABCD as the leader of the project said that ABCD now is a mindset to implement each activity in the project, and they need to change the way of thinking, the mindset in each activity, so ABCD can integrate in each activity a project. Next slide, please. So here I would like to provide some, preliminary the result from the project after 4 years. Next slide, please. Okay, here you see the number of CIG group in 2017. That's the project start. Go back slide, please. Okay, thank you. Only 122 group just formed when the project start. It basically also group is formed from the project before, but it was inactive after the first phase end. And 2017, 122. But you can see that the number of CIG group increased quickly, and it's not only by the number of the group, but also the member. And what I most want you all focus on is the total of saving fund. Saving fund increased a lot. So according to the report of leader of Cao Bang province, they said that normally each year Cao Bang spend about 100 billion of Vietnam dong. It's about almost 500. Let me try to. Okay, it's about like 4 million US dollar to support agricultural development in Cao Bang, but they couldn't see the obvious result. So even almost they think that they believe that all the money spent, they didn't see clearly the outcome. So by doing this kind of support using CIG and saving fund, we can see that money is still there and people use it in the group. So now we can see not only the contribution from project, but also the saving from each member also increase a lot, from about 400 million Vietnam dong. So it's about, let me calculate in the US, it should be about like 18,000 US dollar for the total saving fund, and all of money from the communities, and in 2017. And now is the total fund of the OS group is already about 1 million US dollar. And if we look at only the contribution from the member itself, it's from 18,000 to 429,000. I mean, the saving behavior is another, is another challenge for the poor people, ethnic minorities. But now at least they change behaviors. More money is saved for their own group. So look at the money they contribute. Even though that in the 2017 is 100%, money from the member. Now it's only 25%, but look at the number, it's increased a lot from 18,000 to about 1.5 million. That's one. I think that's one of the evidence showing the contributions of CIC approach already work in that communities. Next slide, please, Quang. Okay, here is the contribution of this project. I couldn't say that it's only about based on CIG, because the project have another component as well. But look at the proportion of the poor and near poor household during 2017 and 2019, compare between project and non-project. And we can see the changing from changing in the in the project area with non-project area, we see the proportion of the poor and the near poor have a very different, you know. It's about the poor, they changing from reduced from 80% to 67%, but in the non-project, the proportion is not changed much. Next slide, please, Quang. Also changing the living standard during the survey year between 2017 and 2019. The living standard also changing. So Hoàng, next slide, Hoàng, please. Next slide, Hoàng, please. Okay, here are some lessons learned. We think that using ABC adapt in the developing CIG in Vietnam have us give us some lesson very important. ABC is a tool for CIG community to find their part for the development. So without using ABCD, normally before the ABCD introduced, we use need-based approach. So probably project is only bring and try to fill the gap from the what we have to the what they need, but you know normally it's never enough for the communities. And using ABC can help us to find the right ways, appropriate way for the development. And using ABCD is approach to find the support to mobilize CIC and promote success story among CIC member and community member. Finally, using ABCD to mobilize CIC member in the community development participatory. Before, you know, their participatory is, you know, very low level, but now we can see the cooperation in the group and between group also increase. Just we think that ABCD already helped for develop CIG in Cao Bang in this case. That's the lesson we have so far. Next slide, please, One. I think that's all slide I have, and the last slide is about some challenge we think that we still have to face, and we really need for the advice or recommendation because still this project still going on, and we still think that not only for the project, but this kind of model can be scaling up, and it's not because as we understanding the ABCD is not a project, it's a mindset, it's an approach that helping the community for development. So it should not be end right after project end like what we have before. So in terms of developing CIG in that kind of community, we think that it's still really useful for the development, but we need, you know, the advice, recommendation, the challenging that we haven't seen yet, and also like how to encourage private sector to join this kind of model to promote poverty reduction in the poor and you know, the poor communities. That's all I have for presentation today. Thank you for the attention.
Dear Quang, thank you very much for your presentation. Because in our group there are some Vietnamese who don't understand English. So can you please summarize your section in a few minutes so that the Vietnamese participant who cannot speak English can understand what we presented? Thank you very much.
Chào tất cả các bạn. Ở đây thì mình muốn giới thiệu rất là nhanh về cái cách áp dụng ABCD vào cái phát triển nhóm đồng sở thích tại Việt Nam. Thì thực tế là trước khi có cái giới thiệu ABCD thì Cao Bằng đã phát triển nhóm đồng sở thích theo cái dự án của IFAD vào năm 2008. Và họ đã phát triển đến năm 2014 thì đã có một số lượng các nhóm đồng sở thích khá lớn, lên tới gần 500 nhóm. Tuy nhiên với cái quan niệm rằng là phát triển tổ nhóm ấy là dồn những cái người yếu thế lại với nhau để mà hợp lực, để mà kết hợp những cái sức mạnh của nhau, và để mà gọi là trong kinh tế thì hay nói là lợi thế nhờ quy mô, tức là quy mô càng lớn thì chi phí sản xuất nhỏ, và như vậy thì hỗ trợ cho việc sản xuất một cách có hiệu quả, và giúp cho những người yếu thế có thể liên kết, có thể cạnh tranh được trên thị trường. Tuy nhiên thì cách hỗ trợ của họ trước đây là thành lập nhóm, sau đó là cung cấp hỗ trợ kỹ thuật, cung cấp giống, cung cấp phân bón, rồi là cung cấp tiền. Tuy nhiên thì ngay sau khi dự án kết thúc thì tất cả các nhóm đó về cơ bản là không hoạt động nữa và giải tán. Nhưng có gì hỗ trợ thì người ta cũng chia nhau và giải tán, và dẫn như vậy thì tất cả những cái nhóm đồng sở thích về mặt lý thuyết là hợp lực của những người sản xuất nhỏ, những người nông dân nhỏ lại với nhau thành một cái tổ chức nhóm lớn thì nó đã không hiệu quả khi mà kết thúc dự án, bởi vì dự án nó không bền vững, nó gắn liền với cả dự án thôi. Thế thì với cái tinh thần như vậy thì năm 2018 khi mà mình có giới thiệu ABCD với lãnh đạo của nhóm đồng sở thích tại Cao Bằng, của dự án tại Cao Bằng, thì họ nghĩ rằng là ABCD nó chính là một cái cứu cánh để giải quyết tất cả những vấn đề về phát triển Cao Bằng. Bởi vì họ nói rằng là nếu mà cách làm trước đây ấy, thì gần như là chỉ là need based thôi, dựa trên nhu cầu thôi, thành ra là cứ là kêu gọi, tức là khi đối với những cái địa phương nghèo ấy, thì liệt kê những cái mong muốn người dân, người ta liệt kê rất nhiều, và tỉnh thì thiếu nguồn lực, trong khi đó những cái hỗ trợ của dự án thì cũng gần như là muối bỏ bể, không bao giờ đủ cả. Lãnh đạo của dự án có nói rằng là một năm ấy thì Cao Bằng tiêu vào khoảng 100 tỷ, 100 tỷ cho các nông nghiệp, cho các dự án nông nghiệp. Tuy nhiên là cứ kiểu như muối bỏ bể, không nhìn thấy một kết quả đâu cả. Thế thì nếu như mà sau khi mình chia sẻ về ABCD thì họ nghĩ rằng là nếu như mà sử dụng những cái nguồn lực một cách hợp lý để mà đảm bảo cái sự phát triển bền vững, đặc biệt là đối với dự án này thì sẽ rất hiệu quả. Và chính vì vậy mà trong cái hoạt động của dự án ấy, có rất nhiều hoạt động, nhưng mà một trong những hoạt động mà mình thấy rõ nét nhất đó là việc đưa vào phát triển các tổ nhóm. Thì nếu mà trước đây thì quan niệm của dự án cũ ấy là phát triển tổ nhóm ấy là phải là sản xuất chỉ một sản phẩm thôi. Trong khi đó mình biết là mọi người đều biết là trên thực tế thì người dân không thể nào sản xuất một sản phẩm cả, người ta sản xuất nhiều sản phẩm khác nhau. Thế thì với cái việc mà phát triển phải dựa trên cái sự phát triển của từng tổ nhóm ở từng mức độ khác nhau ấy, đấy là một cách áp dụng ABCD, và dựa trên cái nội lực của họ để mà xem là đẩy họ lên ở mức độ nào. Ví dụ là nhóm yếu nhất thì chỉ nên đẩy mức đảm bảo họ an sinh thôi, nhóm tốt hơn sau đó là nhóm tốt hơn một chút thì có đẩy lên cái mức là có thể có những cái sự liên kết nhỏ để mà bắt đầu tham gia vào sản xuất hàng hóa. Còn nhóm tốt hơn nữa thì mới tính là đẩy họ vào cái hỗ trợ họ, hướng dẫn họ để tham gia vào các chuỗi giá trị thì mới hiệu quả. Thế thì cái việc nhận thức lại là đa dạng sinh kế thay vì đơn kế, và phát triển tùy các mức độ khác nhau là những sự tiến bộ mà áp dụng ABCD. Và một cái nữa là trong những hỗ trợ thì họ tin rằng là cái việc cho phân bón, thuốc trừ sâu vân vân ấy là nó sẽ không hiệu quả trong trường hợp mà người dân không làm chủ được cái kỹ thuật đó, hoặc người dân không muốn làm điều đó. Thì trên cơ sở đánh giá cái nguồn lực theo ABCD thì xem là người dân làm gì là người dân tự quyết định, và dự án quyết định là chỉ hỗ trợ tiền, và hỗ trợ tiền theo kiểu là khi mà người dân biết tiết kiệm thì sẽ tăng dần lên. Ví dụ như đây là người ta hỗ trợ tiền là hỗ trợ, nhưng mà người dân sử dụng cái tiền đó để các thành viên tự vay xoay vòng để mà tự tổ chức quản lý kinh doanh, chứ còn các dự án không can thiệp vào việc sản xuất cái gì như thế nào, mà người dân tự quản lý, và cái vốn đó người dân cũng tự quản lý. Và cái việc làm chủ đó làm cho người dân biết lựa chọn sản xuất cái gì như thế nào và khi nào bán, và họ tự chịu trách nhiệm về vốn vay của mình ở trong thành viên của nhóm. Cái đó đã làm cho cái việc mà liên kết nhóm họ tăng cường lên, họ phải làm có hiệu quả để họ trả lại cho thành viên khác để được vay. Và kết quả như vậy thì mình thấy rằng là trong 4 năm vừa qua thì số nhóm đã tăng lên rất đáng kể, và tổng số quỹ nhóm cũng tăng lên. Như cái bảng vừa rồi mình có giới thiệu là tổng quỹ nhóm đã tăng lên từ chỉ có 400 triệu thôi, thì đến bây giờ đến năm 2021 tổng số quỹ nhóm đã là 35 tỷ. Trong 35 tỷ đó thì mọi người có thể thấy rằng là tổng số dự án họ tài trợ rất là cao, nhưng mà dự án này mình nói là tài trợ theo kiểu matching fund, càng nhóm càng tiết kiệm được nhiều thì lại càng được thì mới được nhận được hỗ trợ. Thì đây mình chỉ nhìn vào số tiền đóng góp của nhóm thôi, là nhóm riêng tiền người dân, cộng đồng người dân nghèo trong hơn 500 tổ nhóm đó thì hiện giờ đã có đến gần 10 tỷ tiền của họ. Mà trong khi đó trước đây thì hàng trăm tỷ của nhà nước vứt đi thì cung cấp đưa ra hỗ trợ thì gần như là không thấy một cách rõ ràng. Thì bây giờ thấy khoản tiền nó còn nguyên và tiếp tục được xoay vòng để hỗ trợ phát triển, là một trong thành công dự án. Thì hiện giờ thì dự án vẫn đang thực hiện, và mình cho rằng đây là một hoạt động thành công trên cơ sở ABCD. Và tất nhiên là còn nhiều cái khó khăn khác mà đang muốn là xin ý kiến chia sẻ của mọi người. So I just briefly summarize what I present so far in the Vietnamese. Thank you.
So now we can come back with your discussion questions, and then any participant would like to say something or suggest something for the common interest group, please. Or you can have any questions, so Mr. Quang Trieu can answer you.
Any question from Vietnamese friend? Các bạn Việt Nam có câu hỏi nào không nhỉ?
Rồi, các bạn là Việt Nam mà tham gia video này, các bạn cũng có thể, các anh chị cũng có thể hỏi, đặt câu hỏi. Có thể mình nhìn thấy cũng một số các anh chị em, các bạn là IP alumni. Các bạn có thể đặt câu hỏi với bạn Quang bằng tiếng Anh hoặc tiếng Việt cũng được, vì section của chúng ta là cả tiếng Anh và tiếng Việt. Có một câu hỏi ở chat box của bạn Hương thì Quang address nhé.
Okay. So question from Ms. Hương is project scope is within the committee. How it can spend larger committee as strategy for poverty reduction with other province, please. Okay, thank you, Ms. Hương, for the question. Okay, let's talk only about ABCD. I'm now, so to answer the question, we are not talking about CIG, but we're talking about ABCD. And I would say that it's not ABCD is not attracted by the leader of project as the way to develop CIG, but also in the promote development in Cao Bang as well. So I'm talking with the leader of Cao Bang and leader of other province as well. Now they think that the time for Vietnamese waiting for receive the sponsor support from the foreigners, from international organization or other countries already ends. So we now need to develop based on what we have, and thinking what we think before is the negative or weakness of the poverty of the weakness of the community or province is now look as a resource, and they and you can see that Ninh Thuận is one of example. So before we think that it is a very difficult, this province facing very difficult in terms of natural resource. Now we think all the condition in Ninh Thuận now, I'm sorry, talking about the Vietnam case, like we have another condition to develop, solar energy, for example, and look at Hà Giang as well. Before we think that that's a very poor province, and then I don't remember how we call Lúa Mạch used to be like one of the the weakness that the food people need when we have nothing else to eat. But based on the difficulty, we think that their culture now is a one way for the development based on the cultural values. So the way in the way of apply ABCD is that look in the community to find the strength, to find what is most important, the resource they have, and then develop from them instead of looking what the community need. So I think that by the changing the mindset, it can be applied not only in a small scale in the community, in the interest group, but can be applied in the whole country as well. If we listen carefully from the opinion from the Vietnamese leader and the leader in our province, and even for example in agriculture now, we think that we shouldn't follow in the past with the new model is that we're looking at, for example, in the south of Vietnam, in Mekong Delta. So look at, it's not provide, it's a right producer place anymore. Now we can develop based on diversity product and try to mobilize and try to use all the resource we have. So again, I would say that using of ABCD as a mindset, as approach can be applied in different scale. But how to do it, we need to have a further discussion. Okay, another question from Hương is when all the resource is a limit, as we say, like very different. Okay, from my opinion is that in ABC approach we look at very differently. For example, look at human resource. We used to measure human resource as level of education. In the questionnaire, if you all agree with me that in the questionnaire we have normally to measure human resource of one area or one organization, we always measure the level of education. But in ABCD, especially in the community, we don't use that kind of measurement. We ask them what they can do best, what's the skills they have, instead of what education level we have. So look at this, look at the way we look at human resource, already different between the normal way and ABCD way. ABC consider all the resource in Vietnam we call six group, right? Human resource, natural resource, financial resource, social resource, or social asset, and cultural. And the way we look at, for example, social asset is a very different. So I know that Ms. Hương still have a lot of questions. I think that we should save some time for the other, and for the Vietnamese, we can have like keep going the Vietnamese discussion to make it clear.
For Ms. Hương, so she can go to the coffee break, and then we have a coffee break. Okay. Then we can talk more, and then Quang, Joan want to have question, please, Joan.
Yeah, thank you so much for this presentation. It's always so wonderful to see ABCD used in such different contexts, obviously very different from my life here in Auckland. My question is, did you have any cultural challenges with the approach of ABCD? I'll give you an example to explain what I mean. In New Zealand, we have a saying that the kumara, which is a sweet potato, does not sing about how sweet it is. So it's quite uncomfortable culturally for us to be, you know, boasting or talking about our strengths and our gifts. So it can be take quite a long time to get people to share their skills and gifts. People are reluctant. They don't want to put their hand up to say they're good at something in case other people think actually, oh, you're not that good, or they cut them down. Did you have a similar challenge in Vietnam? Like, how did it fit in with how people kind of interact and think about themselves?
Thank you for the question. Let me think about what I have is experience I have during that. Probably if Mr. Vinh have any lesson would like to say in this case, please.
Yes, I have some lesson that I learned before, and then it's the same in Vietnam. We a little bit, how to say, conservative, and then after the first few times when we meet the new people, we never say what we have, or that's our culture. We keep listening until we can think that we trust them enough to talk and share the idea. So one of the strategy when we go down to the community, especially to the ethnic minority community in Vietnam, is really difficult to ask them what's your gift or talented and what's the resources. They never answer. So our approach is that the people in general in Vietnam, they always proud of the festival they organized before. Any kind of festival, community festival, or kind of the community event, they are very proud of. So we begin with asking them what kind of festival, key festival in your community, and how you organize it, and then how people working together to organize. And from there, we work on, and then they're proud of that, and they share the idea, they share the event, and from there we can ask a lot of things related to the access. So that's one of the strategies that I used to use when I approach the community, that they are really conservative and not easy to communicate at the beginning. So that's one of the experience.
Thanks, Kevin. I think the similar experience I have like you. I hope that the question can, Mr. Vinh question can give the answer for the question, because I have a similar experience as Mr. Vinh. I have a question from Karen asking about the success of project impact the policies. I don't know the case in the West and US and Canada and Australia, but in Vietnam, I think because I am luckily now I'm working in a couple of projects with involved at the high level, the central government, because we do like master planning for the regional development in Vietnam. And from my experience, the way of the ABCD approach, probably no one call it as ABCD, but the way of thinking now already apply in Vietnam. For example, in the that in the past, Vietnam often ask for support from international organization or the other countries for the development. For example, asking for ODA, for example. But now it's a leader of Vietnam look very different. They believe that we should discover the resource we have and try to bring them. If in the past we look at them as a weakness, now we try to see any way that it can be a resource. Let me make the example in a province. I work with the leader in the master planning of the province. It's a high mountain area and it's a rural area. It's ethnic minority. Normally, with like rock, terrains, high mountain, ethnic minority. In the past, we look at them as a weakness of the province and make them become the poor province. But now they look at as a resource. They think that okay, it can be like it can be developed in different way. For example, using ethnic minority as a resource to attract tourists coming, and because of the rock, terrain, and high mountain. Look at them as a resource to develop like the tourists as it's not like tourists in the tourist model in the past. Now we're changing the way, using all the resources they have, the natural resource that we have as a resource. It's not the source of the poverty, but the resource for development. I mean, so what I mean is that the leader of the province look at them as a resource instead of the weakness now. So the changing of the way bring them the new policy to to expand the resource they have. So I think that influence the policy in terms of policy. Probably it's not very light ABCD what we have, but if you think that ABC as a mindset, it already changing. But for Vietnam, it's probably easier because in the past we based on external resource. Now becomes a middle income country. We don't have that anymore. We have to think differently. We have to think that no, we cannot waste. We cannot expect from outside, but we need to look at inside what we have to bring it up. That's the changing in the way of the policy maker that I have experienced.
Thank you, Quang. We have one more last question before we wrap up this session and take a 10 minutes break talk for coffee, and then you come back to the second section. So any last question you want to ask, Quang?
Oh, I'm still waiting for any question. I look at the chat box and don't see any more. Probably we addressed almost of them. I know that from question from Ms. Hương, but I think that we can still discuss properly in Vietnamese to make it clearer in terms of Vietnamese contact. If you all agree. So, anyone have other question?
Very last question. Okay.
Or any advice or any recommend for us in terms of develop ABCD in poverty communities?
Okay, if we don't have any other question, we would like to thank you very much for participating in our first session, and we take about 10-minute break. We can go to the coffee break room now, and we can talk more, and then we can come back in the next 10 minutes for the second section, how we apply ABCD for people with disability to start up their business. Thank you, and see you again in the next section.
David và cô.
Oh, one more question from David. Should we move to the coffee break section so that you can have a chat more there? Okay.